Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Start the Week with Spencer. This is our weekly webinar where parents join from around the world and ask questions about the Doman Method, children with special needs, parenting, early childhood education. And so wherever you are in the world, uh, you know, feel free to go ahead and ask your questions, type them into the comment spots. It doesn't matter whether you're joining me on Facebook, Instagram, X, or YouTube. Go ahead and type your questions in and we will answer them in order. So I am actually joining this session from the Doman International Clinic here in Pisa, Italy. So this is our European center. And so over the last 2 weeks, we've been seeing families here coming from around Europe and the Middle East to have their children evaluated. So for example, we've had families coming from Italy, the UK, Portugal, Germany. We had a family come in today from Peru. So we've had parents from all around the world bringing their children here to be evaluated and have a Doman Method program customized for their children. And so it's a great pleasure to be joining from our European location and answering your questions. Hopefully our Wi-Fi will hold up. Well, I wanted to start off today's webinar by talking about hearing issues and challenges with children and adults with special needs. Now, while I talk about this issue, feel free to type your questions in as we discuss, and I'll probably talk on this for about 10 minutes and then take questions on other topics. Now, auditory problems are very common with children with issues. And generally, children fall into one of two groups. Either they are children who are hyposensitive in hearing, meaning they don't hear well enough, or they are hypersensitive, meaning they hear too much. And both of these challenges create huge problems for children with special needs. For children who are hyposensitive, who lack sensitivity to sound, very often they don't hear sounds well, they don't hear speech well, they often have difficulty with locating sounds. So for example, a sound might come from this location, but they look in the opposite location, or they search for the sound, or sometimes they don't respond at all. And so children who are hyposensitive to sounds it creates all kinds of problems for them, right? Because often they don't hear speech well, so they don't speak clearly, or sometimes not at all. Often they are disoriented because they don't know where sounds are coming from. And their comprehension is impacted because they don't hear well. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, children who are hypersensitive, overly sensitive to sounds, are often very distracted, right? They're constantly distracted by sounds because they can't filter out anything. The sounds of their environment are kind of like waves of chaos. And by the way, waves of chaos is not something I said, something I made up. That was actually said to me by a child who was auditorily hypersensitive. And he told me, I live in a world of chaos and it's like waves of sound just, drowning me out all the time. Those were his words. And so this makes the world a very unpleasant place for these children because they're dealing with sounds all the time. They can't filter sounds out. This is overwhelming to them. Very often they are irritated by certain sounds or bothered. They might cover their ears to certain sounds or try to leave places because the sounds bother them. Some children will even cover their ears and rock back and forth or make sounds all the time. They talk all the time or hum all the time. Why would they do that? Because they're trying to drown out all the sounds. Think about it for a second. If you were in an environment where sounds were constantly bothering you, if you can't cover your ears, the only other thing you can do is make sound louder than the sound which is bothering you to try to drown it out. And so that's why some children are constantly producing sounds by humming, talking, or making other sounds. Some children want to play music all day long because that's the only way that they can drown out other sounds and kind of soothe themselves. So some children are hyposensitive, some children are hypersensitive, but regardless, it creates major problems for them, major problems. And so what do we do at Doman International with children with auditory problems? Well, the first thing that we do is we do auditory stimulation. So we provide different kinds of sound stimulation to help normalize their ability to hear a range of frequency of sounds. And we do that by providing the children with different sounds, right? So usually we will give the parents a program that they do at home with the child with different kinds of sounds that produce different frequencies. So for example, parents will have sounds like bells or whistles or maracas and rattles, things like this that produce different kinds of sounds. And at different times throughout the day, they will play those sounds for the children. And not only will they play the sounds for the children, but they will do it from different locations. So sometimes they'll play the sounds from the right side, and other times from the left side, and sometimes behind the child, and sometimes in front, and sometimes above. And so that creates a challenge for the child where they have to hear the sound, but they also have to locate it, which is very, very important. So we provide different kinds of sound stimulation. Some children need very strong sound stimulation. And when I say strong sound stimulation, some children who don't hear need things like the sound of popping a balloon, for example, because it's loud and sudden, but that's the intensity of stimulation they need for them to learn how to hear. And by the way, those children, when you do that stimulation with a good frequency, with good repetition, they start to respond, right? They start to hear for the first time, they start turning to the sounds, and all of a sudden you have a child who's connected and aware who before was in their own world. On the other end of the spectrum, children who are hypersensitive, we do the opposite. We put sounds very softly, right? Because they're often dealing with a lot of chaos. And so if you just make a loud sound, it'll just become a part of that chaos. But if you provide just one kind of quiet sound at a time, and it's very important to do one sound at a time, because if, for example, if you're trying to give your child sound stimulation, but you've got a TV on in the background, or you've got radio playing, now the child has to deal with multiple sounds at the same time. Now, for you and I, as people with normal hearing, that's no big deal. But if you're a hypersensitive child who cannot filter out sounds, that is a huge problem. And so what we do is we provide one sound at a time to stimulate the child's hearing, and the child learns to focus on the different sounds. So sound stimulation is the first form of auditory programming that we do to help children with hearing challenges. In addition to that, we have two music treatment programs. Now, it's important for me to differentiate the music treatment programs that we use at Doman International from what is called music therapy. Music therapy is something that many parents bring their children to, and the therapist will play different kinds of instruments and have the child engage with different kinds of instruments. Now, music therapy, theoretically, as a concept, I think is a wonderful idea. I think it's beautiful for children to hear music and engage with instruments. But that being said, we have not seen dramatic improvements with children with neurodevelopmental conditions who have undergone music therapy. I don't think that music therapy is bad. I just think that I don't think it does anything wrong for children. I think it's great for children to hear music and interact with instruments, but it doesn't appear, having seen hundreds and hundreds of children go through it, to really provide big results in terms of helping children with their hearing and speech. But we do have music treatments that we do with children with special needs that we have found greatly helps hearing, speech development, focus and attention, reduction in hyperactivity, reduction in anxiety. And so we have incorporated those music treatments into the program. One is called electronic auditory stimulation. By the way, these music treatments were not created by Doman International. They were created by people in treatment of neurodevelopmental issues who created, in our opinion, great treatments. And so we found them and utilized them with children because they provide great results. and they can be done at home, which is fantastic. You know, there are many music treatments out there, but many of them you have to go to a specialized location to do it, and they're usually incredibly expensive. When I say incredibly expensive, I mean $3,000 for a course of treatment. While the music treatments that we are working with are actually in the range of somewhere between $50 to $120 every 6 months, just to give you an idea. It's much less expensive because it can be done at home through applications. So the first program is called electronic auditory stimulation. It is a music treatment that we utilize with children with auditory problems, where the child listens to music through headphones. These are headphones that cover the entire ear. But the music is specially formulated because as the child listens to the music, there are pulses and frequencies that are randomly inserted into the music. And so the child focuses on the music, but then all of a sudden, there are these random pulses and frequencies that appear, or rather sound. And what happens is the child, and this is quite amazing, learns to focus on the music and tune out the auditory frequencies. And that's what we want, because we want the child to improve in their ability to focus on one sound and filter out extraneous sounds. One of the most important auditory abilities that we have as humans is the ability to filter out sounds. Let me give you a real life example that all of us have had at one point in our lives. Have you ever been at a party and you're talking to someone in front of you and you're speaking to them, and even though the room is quite noisy, you're able to focus on what they're saying and talk to them. And all of a sudden, in the middle of your conversation, you hear someone in another conversation mention your name. And all of a sudden, you're like, why is that person talking about me? So you tune out the person talking to you, and literally the person's there talking, and you just see their mouth moving. And you're listening in on this other conversation because you're thinking, who is this person talking about me? That is an incredible auditory filtering ability that humans have that we utilize all the time without even thinking about it, right? Right now, I'm talking to you. There are people talking in the next office, but it doesn't bother me because I'm focused on this. And so, but many children with special needs can't do this. They have no filtering ability. So you put them in a loud place with a lot of noise, they can't focus on conversation. You put them in a classroom with 20 other kids and the kids are shuffling in their seats and tapping their pens. The child can't hear what the teacher is saying because they can't filter out the other sounds. So the electronic auditory stimulation helps teach children how to focus on a sound and tune out extraneous sounds. So we use electronic auditory stimulation with some children. With other children, we use an auditory program called the Safe and Sound Protocol. The Safe and Sound Protocol is really helpful for children who are overly sensitive to sounds, but also children who are hyperactive or anxious, right? Children who are constantly in movement or worried or who are engaging in repetitive behaviors. This is very common with children, for example, with autism diagnoses. They tend to be hyperactive. They have difficulty with focusing. They engage in repetitive stimming, what's called stimming behaviors. And the Safe and Sound Protocol can be very helpful for these children in providing the auditory stimulation which is necessary to help address these problems. So I see that I've been going on for about 15 minutes now. Obviously, auditory treatment for children with special needs is a huge topic. It's something I could spend hours talking about. But it is an issue that actually affects over 90% of children that we see. Most parents are aware that their child has hearing issues, but some aren't. Some parents don't realize their child has filtering problems, for example, or that their child can't locate sounds well, right? Or that their child is distracted easily by sounds. These are symptoms that aren't necessarily obvious unless you know how to observe a child and look for them, but they can create devastating effects for a child because it makes learning in a classroom nearly impossible. It makes working in crowded environments difficult. It makes socialization in a location with many other children very difficult. Who's going to want to interact with other kids if you're in a place with 20 other children and they're talking and screaming and that hurts your ears? So very often, sadly, these children are viewed as being rude, they're often viewed as having behavioral problems. I'll hear people say this about children with autism a lot, like, that child is so rude, like he's so poorly socialized. And, if we were incredibly hypersensitive to sounds, so much that every environment we walked into was painful, we probably wouldn't be social creatures either, right? We'd probably want to isolate ourselves and get away from people, not be the life of the party. And so very often auditory problems are assessed incorrectly as behavioral problems. Okay, well, that is the auditory programs. I see that we've got some comments and questions that are coming in. So let me start reading off some of the comments and questions. So Annabella says, hi, we are Vanessa's family. We'll meet you in person in Florida on the 23rd. Fantastic. I really look forward to meeting you when we're in Miami. This is actually the first time we've ever done appointments in Florida. And it's exciting. We have families coming from Florida, but also other areas of Latin America. We've purposely picked Miami to make our services more easily available for families coming from Latin America. So I'm really looking forward to meeting a lot of families there. Okay. Sandrak is saying, if I can take the course, then I can take that individual course before the appointment. So Sandrak, if I understand your question correctly, I'm guessing you might be talking about the Doman Method course. So the Doman Method course can be taken before the appointment. In fact, I recommend that it is. And some families decide to take the online Doman Method course and implement the program that they learn. And then they later come to Doman International for an appointment. And that's quite common. So for example, here in Italy today, there was one family who is here for their first appointment, and they took the course several months ago. And then they decided to come for an appointment. But other parents decide to sign up for the course and do the appointment at the same time. So for example, we had a family that came from the country of Georgia, and they enrolled both for the course and appointment simultaneously. So the best thing to do is talk to the Doman International representative that you're in touch with and discuss what's best for your family, if it's best just to start with the course or to do a course and appointment at the same time. They'll help guide you with that process and answer any questions that you have. Okay, I have another question here from Gomad who says, hi, Spencer. Can the Doman Method work with an 8-year-old kid that has the COL4A1 gene? This gene is very rare. Wondering if you have had a patient with it. I see you have a second question here, but it looks like it's the same one. So Gomad, to be honest with you, I have not heard of this specific disorder. Now, that being said, we have worked with hundreds of different genetic conditions. And to be honest with you, there are so many at this point, and so many rare conditions. We work with many children that have genetic diagnoses that there are only 50 children in the world, 100 children in the world with this diagnosis, that sometimes there are even diagnoses that I'm not aware of that we have helped, right? Children who have come onto the program done now, but now we're talking about hundreds or thousands of different genetic diagnoses. I don't remember all of their names. And so I usually have to go to our database and search and see if there's another diagnosis. Keep in mind that if the child has a developmental delay, which is the result of a problem with their brain development, the program can help that child. And so when it comes to children with genetic diagnoses, virtually all of them, if they have a developmental delay, can be helped by the program. Virtually all of them. On a rare occasion, we'll see a child with some kind of muscular disorder. It's not a neurological problem. It's a breaking down or a degenerative disease in their muscles or a metabolic condition. But the vast majority of the cases, the children with genetic conditions, we can absolutely help them. By the way, this week, we have a now adult but former child on our program who has a genetic diagnosis, and she here at Doman International, not for an appointment. She graduated from our program, but as an intern, because she plans to become a doctor in the future and utilize and she wants to know more about our program and how she can use it to help children as a doctor, which is amazing. And she was diagnosed with a genetic condition, but no one would ever know it, And so that just gives you an idea of the kind of potential that children with genetic conditions can have. All right, Juan says, hello. Sorry, Doman, I want to go back and just say one last thing. So the best thing to do is to reach out to one of our representatives, send a direct message to our Instagram page or our Facebook page, and one of our representatives can get in contact with you. Now, I have Colleen here. Colleen, I know that Wi-Fi isn't great there. Would you be okay if I added you to the stage? Should we see how this works?
Let's see how it goes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you well. Yeah.
Okay.
So Colleen, just any thoughts about like how people can get in touch with you if they want to learn more, especially if they have maybe a rare diagnosis or a condition they're not sure if Doman International can help?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks. So my email address is info@domaninternational.org. My phone number is +1 814-232-8668. I will put this in the chat. I might need to do it through Instagram on my phone because I've been having trouble getting the chat feature to work here. But you can always message us directly on Doman International's Instagram because I see all of those messages as well. So that might actually be the fastest for you. That or Facebook Messenger is perfectly fine too. But yeah, we can definitely talk about the different diagnoses that kids have received. And as Spencer said, there are so many at this point, and it seems as if the better they're getting at finding these genetic issues, the more names there are for them, which is fine, except that we have been seeing kids with these genetic issues for many years. We just none of us had a name for it yet because it hadn't been diagnosed. So certainly we have a lot of experience with that. Oh, great. Thank you, Spencer. Thank you.
Yeah. So I put Colleen's number up on the screen. I hope I got it right.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, Colleen. Okay. So the next question that I have here is from Juan, who says, hello, is it possible to teach two kids together? One is 3 years and the other is 6 months. Yeah, absolutely, Juan. And not only that, we actually recommend to parents to do our program with both children together whenever possible. And this is I'm talking about both the Doman Method with children with special needs, or if parents are utilizing the Doman learning programs with their well children. Absolutely. And what we usually find creates the best dynamics. If you're trying to teach two neurotypical kids to read and do math with the Doman Method, it's usually best actually to focus on the older child first and allow the younger child to observe. The reason for this is that the younger child will very often kind of naturally absorb everything you teach the older child because it's usually easier for younger children to learn. And so it allows you to kind of focus on the older child. The younger child can kind of watch and observe when they want to. But the second thing is that if you start with the older child, the younger kid will think it's cool, okay? If you start with the baby and the older child sees it, they might think that what you're doing is kind of a baby activity. But if you do it with the older child, the younger kid will think, wow, this is a really cool thing because my older brother or sister does it, and they'll want to be involved. So yeah, we highly recommend doing the program with both kids. All right. Here's a good question from Tracy. What's the differences between the books and the course? Are the books enough to do the Doman method properly? Very good question. So the books are full of information, and you can absolutely start a Doman method program directly from the books. That's why we created them. And we really made the books to make the program as accessible as possible to parents around the world. The book is not as comprehensive as the course. And there are various reasons for that. First of all, there are some things that it's very hard to teach if you can't do it audio-visually, like certain program techniques, like the program of patterning is almost impossible to teach on a piece of paper because you have to see it to know how to do it. And then there are other programs that are so, we've developed an entire pathway for them. And so each program you could create a book for on its own. So for example, if we talk about teaching a child with special needs how to read, in the books, I wrote a chapter on reading where I talk about how to start a Doman method reading program. And you could absolutely use that chapter to begin the process of teaching a child to read and teaching a child to read words. But the reading program is, if you want to go from teaching a child to read words all the way to teaching them how to read books independently, it's a process. And as I said, you could write an entire book about that subject on its own, especially for kids with special needs with visual challenges. So in the course, we're able to go into a lot more details. We're able to really show you the entire pathway of, for example, for children with mobility problems, we're able to show, okay, this is how you go from getting an immobile child crawling on the belly. Here are programs to get children from crawling to creeping to walking. And so we're able to go into far more detail in just about every area. Colleen, I'm going to add you to the stage. Do you have any additional thoughts on this, the difference between books and the course?
So Tracy and I are in regular contact, which is great. This is the family in Swaziland that I told you about.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yes. So I think you've actually said exactly what I said. The books are a great place to start, and we do know families who have used only the books, if circumstances don't allow them to take the course. But the course, we have payment plans, and it is an opportunity to spend more time with the staff. You really get a coach to yourself. They help you with all of the details so that you've got everything really right. We didn't hold anything back in the books in terms of the basic method, but the course is an opportunity to go even more in depth, for sure.
All right, thanks, Colleen.
You bet.
All right, so going back, Sandra is clarifying the question, is it possible to do the auditory programs that I mentioned before attending an appointment? So Sandra, it depends on the program. With the auditory stimulation programs that I mentioned, in both the book, The Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness, now that book exists in English, Italian, and Spanish, I do outline auditory stimulation that you can begin at home with your children. And I talk about things like startle reflex stimulation. I talk about providing meaningful sounds. So you could begin some of the auditory programs from the book itself. In terms of some of the other auditory treatments that I talked about, like the Safe and Sound Protocol or electronic auditory stimulation, in nearly all cases, we like to evaluate a child before prescribing those programs because we want to make sure that the child is a good candidate for the program, that they can be helped by it. And listen, all treatment, and this actually brings up an important point. All treatment has the possibility of side effects. And even the best forms of treatment, I have seen, and I'm not just talking about the Doman method, I'm talking about everything in general, can potentially have side effects. Vitamin C, for example, which is an amazing supplement for boosting immunity. Some children don't tolerate it well, and it can affect their behavior, for example. And so that's why it is really important that, certain programs, we do have to evaluate a child before we recommend them. And then we also want to have staff who are tracking the child after they've started the program. As safe as they are, there are always going to be children who are outliers who have side effects to certain programs. So yeah, specifically with those music treatments, we like to assess children first before prescribing them. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. Yeah, so Gomad has said the child who had the genetic condition that was mentioned before, the child has epilepsy and autism. And epilepsy is related with that gene. Yeah, exactly. And so that, you see, when we hear autism or epilepsy, we know that the child has a neurodevelopmental condition, because symptoms of autism and epilepsy, which are seizures, are the result of an injury to the brain. And specifically epilepsy, for example, we know when a child has epilepsy, it means their cortex, which is the highest level of the brain, is not operating correctly, because for a seizure to occur, it has to occur in the cortex. And so, yeah, that child is definitely a candidate for our program. And please get them in touch with us. Yeah, get them in touch with a colleague. Okay. I see here that there's a message on Instagram from Doman Iberoamerica, which is our Spanish page, that's saying, pueden contactarnos para más información en Doman Iberoamerica en español. So saying if you want more Spanish about the information about the Doman method, you can go to the Doman Iberoamerica page. Oh yeah, Gomad is saying, I will contact them. It's not my child, but I'll tell my friend about you. Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and please, you can get them in touch directly if they speak English with Colleen. And please also let Colleen know that you're sending them to her, so we know, who to thank when they get in touch with us. All right. I see a question here from Jennifer. So Jennifer's question, it says, my 2-year-old with Down syndrome has expressive language and speech delays. He is otherwise on track with all milestones. Up until recently, he had no words and a few gestures. We have been implementing increased cross-body movements and creeping. He only bear crawled before, while waiting for our class to start in August. So Jennifer's talking about the Doman Method course, which is starting in August. We immediately saw an increase in jabbering, and he picked up a few gestures. Last week, we started hyperbaric oxygen and red light therapy. He started saying mama and dada. Today, he started signing for, sorry, it won't let me read any more of your comment, Jennifer. It's because I use this broadcast program, and it's kind of cuts off the text after a while. But I think I definitely get the idea. If I missed anything else that was important in your comment, please retype it below. But so first of all, cross-body movements, right? Things like crawling on the belly or creeping on the hands and knees can be so helpful for brain development. Many children with special needs don't crawl or creep before they walk. So it's kind of like their brain development is a bit like trying to build a house on a faulty foundation. If the foundation is faulty, the house won't stand. And so when we go back to these essential brain organization activities like crawling and creeping, and we do them, all of a sudden we start to see the child have these new abilities, like in your child's case, talking, which is amazing. And then, Yeah, and then sorry, I'm reading your other thoughts. So hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So at Doman International, we don't do hyperbaric oxygen. We do other oxygenation programs that have similar effects to hyperbaric oxygen, where our breathing enhancement program, we actually have 3 different oxygenation programs, and all of them result in increased oxygen delivery to the brain. So now hyperbaric oxygen can also do that. So the fact that your child has responded well to that treatment, I think bodes well for how he will do with our oxygenation program, which by the way can also be done at home very, very conveniently. So that's wonderful. And then thank you for telling me about red light therapy. This has been something someone I greatly respect recently told me to look more into red light therapy. So I'm definitely very interested in it. And so it's helpful when I hear parents give me feedback like that, because honestly, half of the best programs that we do at Doman International, we heard from parents. So it's always really helpful to get this kind of feedback. Okay. So Tracy is asking, if a parent takes one of our courses, like the Doman Method course or the autism course, are the recordings done where we can watch over and over, or do you have to attend live and then only watch it once? So Tracy, with our Doman Method course or Answering Autism course, it's a 5-week course. So parents are given access to the videos for 5 weeks. The reason why, and by the way, during that time, you can rewatch videos as many times as you like. I know some parents who tell me they rewatch videos 3 or 4 times during that time just to make sure they get it all. You also get things, you get downloadable handouts of the presentations where you can take your own notes. So you'll be able to watch things many, many times. The reason, honestly, why we limit the amount of time is more because we know that parents get the most out of the course when they watch it all at once, right? It's the kind of thing that, if you watched it over a year, by the time you get to the end of the course, you wouldn't remember necessarily what you learned at the beginning. And so when parents take some time over a month to watch the course and complete it, we find it gets the best results with children. Okay. Yeah, Jennifer's saying the creeping did incredible things for his balance. I think the added therapies are making a difference. Yeah, wonderful. Thanks for your feedback. Jennifer's saying we want to do the oxygenation program, but since he's 2, I feel he won't sit still for that. So actually, Jennifer, for the Doman oxygenation programs, the first oxygenation program which we teach is called the breathing enhancement program, and the child doesn't have to stay still. Actually, a child can walk around while they do it. They don't have to. Some children sit and lie, and some children walk around, whatever they're most comfortable doing. We have more advanced respiratory programs that we will sometimes add 6 to 12 months later, where a child does need to sit during the treatment, but not the breathing enhancement program. That can be done by any child, mobile or not. All right. All right, Juan is saying that he finished the month 1 materials from Doman Learning, and then he stopped the program for 6 months. Now he wants to start over again. Should I repeat month 1 materials or move to the second month materials? Yeah, this is a good question. So what Juan is asking about, at domanlearning.com, we have reading and math courses for parents to teach their children at home how to teach their children to read and do math. These are courses specifically for parents. They're really for parents of neurotypical kids who want to teach their children reading and math skills at a young age. One, I would recommend, if you've taken 6 months off, I'd still recommend not repeating the month 1 materials, because the problem is many children have very good memories. It's not a problem, it's a good thing. But if you go back and try to repeat the month 1 materials, some children will just say, no, I already saw this and I don't want to see it again. And then it creates a real problem, because here you're trying to revive get the program started again, and now you've got a child who's annoyed at you for bringing back old materials. Some kids are like that. They really want new things all the time. So it's safer just for you to start with the month 2 materials and get restarted. I'm really glad that you're restarting. I made a video recently for Doman Learning about when parents come back to the program, how to restart it. So you might want to go to Doman Learning's Instagram page and watch some of the recent videos on that topic. But it's great that you're coming back, and so glad you're getting restarted. All right. So there's a question here from Susanna. All right, so Susanna says, my 8-year-old has tetrasomy with global developmental delay. I've been following you practically since he was born. There's an issue that has caused us great embarrassment, which is fecal incontinence. No allergies. He is only intolerant to milk and eggs, with medical advice not to remove them from his diet. They are aware of more cases of this type of incontinence and consider that it is somehow treatable. I'm very careful about your intake of milk and gluten, among other inflammatory. Unfortunately, I can't see the rest of your comment, Susanna. This is a challenge that many children with neurodevelopmental conditions have. Challenges with bladder control or controlling stools. And I'm glad that you've mentioned nutrition, because you said he's only intolerant to milk and eggs, but that you've been given medical advice not to remove them from the diet. And of course, I don't want to give any medical recommendations necessarily for a child I haven't seen that wouldn't be appropriate or safe on my part. But the first thing that would make me question is, well, if he has an intolerance or an allergy, why should we keep those things? Now, there might be a good reason that I'm not aware of, but in my experience, milk, cow's milk, and dairy are rarely necessary. And when I say rarely, I mean very rarely necessary for a child's nutrition. I know that we are told as people all the time that children need to drink milk. This is honestly a myth. A child does not need to drink cow's milk. One of the funny things is, what we're often told is, oh, we need children to drink cow's milk because it has lots of calcium, and calcium builds strong bones. Well, yes, it's true. Calcium does build strong bones. But the reason why cows have a lot of calcium, cow's milk has a lot of calcium, is because cows eat grass. And if you eat green vegetables, they have a lot of calcium in them. So it would actually be better for children to be eating more vegetables and not cow's milk, which can create all kinds of difficulties. I was talking to a mom today here in our clinic who said that once she removed cow's milk, and all dairy, in fact, from her child's diet, her child's drooling completely stopped. Her child would drool. She said the child drooled so much at night that they had to keep throwing out pillows because the pillows were soaked every night by the child's drool. And now the child's drooling is essentially gone, just from the elimination of dairy, because there's a component of dairy called casein, which interacts with our brain biochemistry. And unfortunately for kids with neurodevelopmental issues, it's a big problem. It's a common intolerance for children. So again, Susanna, I don't want to just make a blanket statement and say you should do this, this, and this, because I've never met your child. But if your child's intolerant to milk and eggs, I would question the advice about keeping them in the diet. I love eggs. I think eggs are a healthy food. But if a child's intolerant to them, there are certainly many other foods that have plenty of good nutrition in them. So I'm really glad, Susanna, you've been following us for so long. I'm assuming if you've been following us, you know about our books. Maybe you've read the Doman Method book the Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness, the book. But you mentioned global developmental delay. So if we're dealing with global developmental delay, a child who might be delayed, for example, in learning, having challenges with reading or math, challenges with comprehension and speech, right? These are common symptoms of children with developmental delay, problems with coordination and balance. Children with these kinds of conditions can really be helped by the holistic program of the Doman Method. I won't go into it now because we don't have much time, but if you go to the Doman International Instagram page, the last video that we posted was a video of me explaining the 6 different components of the Doman Method and how the 6 components interact for the best possible brain development. And so, Susanna, I recommend the books. I also recommend the online Doman Method course. I'm not sure if you were on earlier if you were on earlier during this presentation when I had on Colleen Hudson, who is our director of representatives, who's the first person that most parents speak to. But I'm just putting her phone number up where you could shoot her a WhatsApp message and ask her any questions you'd like to ask her. She'll set up a call with you and answer any questions that you have about our program and possible next steps. I hope that's helpful. Okay. All right, I've got a question here from Janet who says, is the autism course appropriate for a child with severe autism who does not speak? He is 7 years old. Yes, it is. Yeah, so let's take severe autism. So 80% of children that join the Doman Method program, 80%, so 4 in 5, have a severe or profound condition when they begin our program. And we actually are able to assess that through comparing their age in years to a developmental age where they are in their development in the most important areas of function. And so 4 out of 5 children fall into the severe and profound categories when they begin the Doman Method. And so for us, severe and profound children are what we're used to working with. It's the majority of children that walk into our clinic. And so absolutely the course is appropriate and honestly created for children with severe issues, including children who don't speak. And so in the autism course, you will get access to a speech course, specific online class in speech development. You will gain access to a class specifically about sensory development. How do you develop a child's hearing ability? How do you stimulate a child orally to improve their ability to feel their mouth, their tongue? All of these things are different components in speech development. How to improve breathing ability and ability to regulate breath. All of these things together help a child produce speech. And so we give you access to all of that in the autism course. Even 7 years of age, one of the most common questions I get in this webinar is my child too old for the Doman Method? The average age of children diagnosed with autism starting our program is 6 to 8 years old. So, and that's the average age. We have children who are 14, 18 years old beginning our program. So, this is the most common kind of child joining our program. Colleen, I'm going to add you, if that's okay, just to talk a little bit about the autism course. It is starting next week, so I guess we should say something about it.
Yeah, yes, it is. It's starting next week, and actually the deadline for enrollment is tomorrow. The reason for that is that we will have a brief orientation session on Wednesday, where we can help you get set up for the whole course, how it works, and we record it. If you can't make that orientation session on Wednesday in person, that's okay. We'll send it to you, but we just want to get everybody organized with enough time to troubleshoot anything, because Teachable is the platform that we use for the lectures, and then we use Telegram as our messaging app to keep everybody in touch. So we just like to have a few extra days before the course begins officially so that you've got everything situated the right way. But the Answering Autism course, we're really excited about the opportunity to present some new lectures, honestly, that are more geared towards kids on the autism spectrum whose main issues are not mobility, although of course everybody gets a mobility program tailored to them because it helps their brain. But if your child can already walk and run and climb, you're not as interested in seeing a lecture about how to get your kid walking. So for the Answering Autism course, we have replaced those lectures with more sensory, more specifically about speech development and all of the things that are more particular to kids with an autism diagnosis. So it's a really good group. I can say that because I've enrolled everybody who's in it. So just terrific parents. If you're considering it, I think you're going to find yourself in excellent company.
Thanks so much, Colleen.
You bet.
Okay. Let's see. Colleen, would you mind writing in the comments your email address so I can put that up? If you have a difficulty with that, let me know, and I can post it. Okay, I've gotten a couple questions about hearing. For everyone who joined late, I started the session talking about auditory problems, children with auditory difficulties, challenges, auditory sensitivity issues. So Annabella says, our daughter has a right hearing conductive loss. Could she hear and benefit from a hearing program? Absolutely. Yeah, hearing loss for most children on our program is 100% a problem due to an injury in their auditory cortex, the area of their cortex for hearing speech, right? And for processing speech. And so absolutely, auditory treatment can help those children. And we've been working with children with auditory issues for many, many years. And then I received another question from Axel, who says, hi, my child has a mild hearing loss, and this would be the reason for his impaired speech, and grommets have been recommended. Have you seen kids with mild hearing loss reaching proper speech without the need of grommets? He is 6. Fine and gross motor skills are great. Okay, so grommets, which can help with reduction of fluid of the ears, certainly could be helpful with improving speech. For children who fluid buildup in the ear, the insertion of a grommet can help with reducing that fluid. And the problem is, if the child has fluid in the ear, it can create a situation for the child where the child kind of hears speech like they're underwater, or they hear sounds like they're underwater. And of course, that can impact comprehension, but it can also impact speech. If the child doesn't hear well, they're probably not going to speak clearly. That being said, Axel, it is very rare that grommets on their own will fix the problem, right? Because very often the children, and this is something that I don't know if I have the time to go into it at this moment, but interestingly, a lot of the time when children have difficulty with fluid draining from the ears, it's because of muscular issues that they have, which is the result of a neurodevelopmental issue. So most children who have problems with draining fluid from their ears are either hypotonic, where they lack muscle control, or they're hypertonic, where they're rigid and spastic. And this is something that I didn't understand until probably about 2 years ago, when someone taught it to me. The eustachian tube, which is the tube that it drains fluid out of the ears, it runs along this muscle in our neck called the sternocleidomastoid muscle. Well, it turns out if your sternocleidomastoid muscle is too rigid or tight, or if it's too loose, it can impact the draining of the fluid from the ears. And why would that muscle be tight, or why would it be loose? It's because the child has a neurodevelopmental condition, which is leading to muscle control problems. So interestingly, there's something called the eustachian tube massage, which Axel, I won't have the time to go into it today, but maybe next week, if you join the session next week, I'll show how to do a eustachian tube massage. But it's something you can do at home with a child that can help drain fluid from the ears naturally. So long story short, can grommets help? Yes, they can help. They can help reduce the fluid from the ears. That can help a child hear better and eventually speak better. But most of the time, these children have a neurodevelopmental condition, which is leading to this problem. This is a symptom of an issue in their brain development. And that's when you need to include other parts of the Doman method to stimulate brain development. And then you get rid of the symptom, which is this auditory issue that you're talking about, this issue in the hearing canal. Okay, so I would definitely recommend for your child, I would recommend, reading the Doman Method book, the Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness. By the way, everyone, it's available on Amazon. And I'd also recommend attending the Doman Method course, the online course where we talk about auditory stimulation. We talk about different programs that can help, improve muscle tone and address some of the underlying issues that I think are likely creating the challenges for your child. Oh, Axel was saying he forgot to mention that his child has Down syndrome. So yeah, fluid buildup issues, very common in children with Down syndrome because they lack the muscle tone in their neck that they need. This makes them a lot more prone to ear infections. And so they need help with muscle tone so that they can drain the fluid from their ears. Again, if you join next week, Axel, I'll talk about, I do this at the same time every week, 11 a.m. Eastern time. So I'll talk about eustachian tube massage and how it can help with fluid reduction. But I recommend in the meantime, talk to Colleen a bit about the Doman Method, let her tell you a bit about the program, and you can learn more that way. Okay. I was talking earlier about genetic conditions and how they can be helped by the Doman Method. But the first genetic condition that we ever worked with was children with Down syndrome in the 1960s. My grandfather, Glenn, worked with a Brazilian doctor. His name was Dr. Raimundo Veras. He was the first person who recommended to my grandfather that the program be used with children with Down syndrome. My grandfather was hesitant in the beginning because he knew they had a genetic condition. And because of that, he wasn't sure if the Doman Method would be helpful for them. And he was also concerned about, he knew that if he proposed that children with genetic conditions could be helped through developing their brains, he knew he would be attacked because people said, oh, children with genetic conditions will always be that way. You can't change a child with a genetic condition. And so Dr. Veras said to my grandfather, okay, let me go back to Brazil and let me use the Doman Method with kids with Down syndrome there, and let me prove to you that it helps these children. And my grandfather said, sure, go ahead. Let me know how it goes. And the results were phenomenal. And so we've been working with Down syndrome, children with Down syndrome ever since. And we have children with Down syndrome who have gone through the Doman Method, who have master's degrees, advanced degrees in university, which of course in the outside world is unheard of. Most people would tell me they wouldn't believe me if I said that. But our program has really remarkable results with kids with Down syndrome. All right, everyone, I think we are all out of time. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. Oh, I'm just going to put up, I meant to put up Colleen's email address for everyone who wants to get in touch with her. There it is. Yeah, info@domaninternational.org. Okay, so that is Colleen's email address. We shared her phone number earlier. So if you want to reach out to her, you can do that. Or if you lose access to the contact info, if you ever go to our website, domaninternational.org, there's a contact form. You can just fill out the contact form, and Colleen, or if you speak another language, one of our other representatives will reach out to you. Colleen, anything else that you wanted to add to that?
No, I think that's perfect. I sent a couple of direct messages, one to Janet, one to Axel, and yeah, basically all contact roads lead to me, at least initially. So if you fill out the form or send a direct message on our Facebook or our Instagram, I will certainly see it. So don't hesitate. But yeah, don't sleep on it, because the courses are just about full and will be deadlined tomorrow.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Colleen.
You bet. Thanks.
All right. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. I'll be back next week at the same time, and look forward to it. All right. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. Bye-bye.